And welcome everybody to the Smash News Network. Please bust a name of news. Just doing our daily live stream to chat with viewers and talk about things like Earth and space weather. So we'll cover what's going on in between Earth and Sun, what's going on in the chats, and what's going on in, of course, Earth meteorology. We'll cover some forecasts. We'll tell you what to expect next, if there are any solar storms and so forth. So pull up a chair and a beverage. Whether you're viewing live or viewing in syndication, press the like button, press subscribe if you're new to the channel. That way you'll see the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content, whether you give 0-degree Fs or not. So let's do it. I'll head up to the network, to the studio spot, and let you know what's going on. Doesn't look like any major space weather is afoot, but we'll verify that on this very stream. Part of my Joulish appearance, I do spend the first 5 minutes or so talking about whatever viewers decide to leave a comment about. Please keep in mind that I am part zombie and part ghoul. And that is why I look so Joulish. I look very Joulish. Especially so early in the morning. I mean, it's like 6:30 a.m. So there's that. I've already gone outside and done about 1.5 miles of walking. It's the new fitness hack. The best fitness hack for the past year or so has been leisurely strolls. Yeah, recovery. Because for many of us, it's much easier to ride hard and go fast than it is to chill out and slow down. And of course, there are a lot of incentives to go fast. The other inhabitants of the road have a tendency to speed us up when you have that rabbit mentality, right? Your speed is a weapon and a defense at the same time. So that's always a consideration. And so the leisurely stroll is part of the defense against that. It allows us to recover the right way. Because keep in mind, it takes about 5 weeks, over a month, to actually see major cardio fitness gains come into effect. So you've got to spend over a month doing the right thing, or that 80-mile ride or whatever, multi-hour workout you did of whatever kind is not going to be as effective because of recovery. So the best investment that I made in 2025 was actually from a couple years earlier. I bought a pair of $30 like waterproof duck boots, and that makes it much more appropriate to go out on a rainy day, for example. Riding your bike ain't so fun on a rainy day, obviously, so it's a better day to work on your equipment. And, of course, maybe do a leisurely stroll or go out for a run or something like that instead of exposing your gear to so much, corrosion and so forth. Bikes and water don't really get along that great. All right, so here is the sun here, and like we said yesterday, there are some prominences and so forth. Flaring activity has been pretty low, only one M-class event in the past 24 hours. We're looking at ionized helium. And thanks for tuning in, viewers. I see there are a couple of you there now. Please press like and share. And of course, thanks to everybody who has. Now, that flare that did happen, that was just a couple of hours ago at about 900 Universal Time. 0900. And if you're wondering where it came from, It came from kind of right in the center of the solar disk here, just to the north. So that's where that M-class event happened. Let's allow that to play through. It was a fairly long duration, and some plasma did definitely splash back down toward the chromosphere. If you look north of where that event was, you'll see some brightening there. That is a Hyder flare. Plasma being reintegrated into the lower depths of the solar atmosphere. All right, so let's look at some more stuff here. Here is our latest SDO magnetogram from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. And so this is the flare producer. And it's not a very complex sunspot, so don't expect big fireworks out of it or out of any parts of the sun, because things are pretty calm here. We don't have complex sunspots with unstable type magnetic fields. That's just cosmic ray flux. We'll skip that for today. Now that may have generated a CME as well. It's going to be too early to see that on the coronagraph. Let's check out the University of Reading forecast, known as the HUXT forecast. Did they move it or something? What happens if we press refresh? Let's skip that as well. Current solar wind conditions are, fields are pretty nominal here, 7 nanotesla with a BZ of +1. That is the one-day solar wind from ACE, the active spacecraft. We have quite a low density solar wind here at about 1 proton per cubic centimeter. Solar wind velocity here, about 400 kilometers per second. There it is. It's measured at Lagrange 1. That's why we show that. The ACE is going to show up as a green orbit here. There's the ACE and its orbit around that gravitational point. Magnetosphere is going to be calm. Here is Earth out to about 12 diameters. And we see a pretty homogeneous magnetohydrodynamic pressure. This is depicting nanopascals. It is a model of the space weather modeling framework. You can read about that on the details tab. This is the Geospace Magnetosphere Movies page from SWPSI, the Space Weather Prediction Center, part of NOAA. We did have some motion here by the GOES 19 and GOES 18 satellites. They had to turn on their thrusters and create some plasma there. That's those arc jet moments. They're shown in the magnetometer because that may be erroneous data from the plasma created by the engines themselves. So they show that as arc jet moments. Again, no major space weather going on, so today, instead of the HUXT forecast, let's take a look at the NOAA forecast. Expecting a coronal hole high-speed stream to strike on Sunday with a density spike. So that's probably going to be pretty accurate, folks. Coronal hole high-speed stream coming on Sunday. You'll see an increase in the solar wind density. And then density will drop off, and we'll see an ongoing coronal hole high-speed stream with a fast wind. So it'll start dense, it'll become diffuse, and then get fast at the same time. So NOAA's forecast for space weather is some minor geomagnetic storming there Sunday night into Monday morning. So that's something to look out for. We may see some mid-latitude aurorae there, but I sort of doubt it. It all depends on the magnetic field strength. And then solar wind density and velocity of that coronal hole high-speed stream. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And when I say eye on, the pun is intentional. Next, some solar stats here. So Saigo TX asks how long till the Carrington event part 2. I mean, that's anybody's guess, but right now the conditions are not really optimal for that. We would have to have a big sunspot kind of oriented toward Earth. So, not very likely to see a Carrington event V2 anytime soon. Barb says fear is an illusion. That's true. You're deciding how you'll react to things. Anyway, here comes some space weather stats. Some of the most important ones: the 10.7 centimeter radial flux and the sunspot number. Radial flux came up a tiny bit. It's at 130 solar flux units according to Solon.info. And Royal Observatory Belgium reporting 68 sunspots. 68 sunspots. So a continued reduction in solar activity here on the Earth side of the disk. And thanks to both of you for leaving comments. So here's our coronagraph, and let's see if that 9 o'clock event shows up yet. Oh, we do see some coronal mass ejection there, just after 9 o'clock. It looks like it's headed off to the northwest. There could be an earthly directed component there, but I would tend to doubt it. If we do see one, it'll arrive sometime late in the day on the 16th. So late in the day on Monday into Tuesday morning, we may see a minor impact from that CME, but again, it looks like most of it will certainly miss off to the northwest. Next, we'll look at stereo A just to see if we can get a little bit of better angle on that. Here's stereo A's coronagraph from the ISWA, the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. And do we have today's CME? Not so good. Yeah, it looks like that eject is all off to the north there. So I don't think that is going to be a CME impact. I expect that coronal mass ejection to miss Earth to the north especially, but also to the northwest. So no impact is likely on Monday. Saigo TX says no major ejections in our direction, but I'm always interested in how it would affect things such as Starlink and ISS. Yeah, so Starlink satellites are actually a little more susceptible to space weather because they're in a very low Earth orbit and they're very small satellites and they have very low fuel supplies. So Starlink satellites are quite susceptible to space weather. So yeah, I mean, and the ISS, of course, they have radiation shielding that they employ. They get in a radiation shielded room when major radiation strikes. So yeah, they will get more radiation if there is an event. And of course, a Carrington event would be very unhealthful. They may receive a fatal dose of radiation despite the radiation shielding on the ISS if a Carrington-like event CME strikes. So yeah, there's some danger there. And of course, terrestrial humans would be exposed to much more radiation on polar flights when a thing like that happens. Let's get into location of planets. This is where planets are located right now. Happy Friday the 13th. We have a lovely crescent moon just setting on the horizon here in Lehigh Valley right now. And yeah, that's where things are located. Keep in mind, this is not to scale. No solar energetic particle events. The proton flux is flatlined. There's that one M-class event. It was barely an M-class flare. It was of long duration. It was just an M1. So just barely making it into the M-class range there and producing a coronal mass ejection, just not an earthly directed one. So Earth remains in a North Pole magnetic sector as shown here. And the coronal hole high-speed stream that we're getting on Sunday into Monday, that is from a North Pole-oriented coronal hole, obviously, since there are the field lines oriented toward the Earth here, opposite of these South Pole field lines oriented toward the sun. And here's our coronal hole line of sight plot. I'll show you a great view of those trans-equatorial North Pole oriented coronal hole systems. So that's going to be the high-speed wind producer. These field lines are open, so they extend all the way to Earth's magnetosphere and indeed beyond Earth. Coronal holes are the source of the high-speed solar wind. And we're going to actually skip the magnetogram. We already looked at the SDO. Here's the red light imagery. We'll just show today from El Teide. That's what about 69 sunspots look like. 68, 69 sunspots. We do have quite a few filaments on the Earth side of the disk. And yeah, this has been the flare producer. It looks like that trailing umbra has actually, so the likelihood of this producing a flare has actually gone down because the trailing umbra there has has dried up. So that's a degradation of that sunspot. Yeah, the likelihood of solar flares actually went down here recently. So there's that. The filament situation is currently, well, we got the Getty Lee filament, which we named yesterday on the video. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. If you want to name solar filaments after your friends, your foes, or even yourself, just use the hashtag #NameThatFilament, America's favorite pastime, naming that filament after living humans, a thing our channel's been doing for years. And we actually had some great ones. For example, the Mother's Day solar storm was named after Tamitha Skov, Space Weather Woman. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, there are some filaments here. And these are looking promising, so maybe these will be the material associated with a future solar storm in the next few days. Fingers crossed for that. And here's the Twitter page, by the way, if you've never seen it. x.com/Smashomash. Thanks to everybody who follows over there. Press that share button, like I said, because YouTube does a pretty bad job of recommending these videos. It's just the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content. And we've been doing it for about 7 years. Anyway, here's the GOES electron flux here. And this is subsiding a little bit, but we're going to get an electron storm condition coming back during and after the coronal hole high-speed stream, I suspect. So, but GPS performance has been improving a little bit there. That's the 1-week chart. The GOES electron flux. The GOES electrons, they measure the electron flux using radiography from the F2 at the F2 layer. They're in a geosynchronous orbit at like 25,000 miles of altitude. They're measuring the electron flux at about 300 kilometers of altitude. Here's the couple thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics model. That's basically all the ions from your handset up to your GPS satellite level. And don't expect major radio blackouts today, because again, like I said, the likelihood of major solar flares is actually whipped down quite a bit. So sunspot number, radio flux, and likelihood of flares is down. So this is what you would use if flares were more likely. When major flaring is happening, we get equatorial radio blackouts. There's that M-class event from around 9 o'clock this morning, causing some radio blackouts in places like Madagascar. But they were not even complete radio attenuation there. Some signals did go into space, but it wasn't a major event, just an M1 flare. And that's about what it would look like. And that is referencing the D region. So that's a little bit lower. That's at about 90 kilometers of altitude on the daytime side of the planet. Feel free to pause the video on this frame. Next, we'll take a look at the ionosphere. This is the F layer. And I'll show the animation today. So there's the excitation of the ionosphere. You'll notice on the daytime side of the planet, it puffs up. South Atlantic anomalies over the equatorial Pacific coast of South America. African anomaly is on the equatorial coast of Africa. Those are the two weakest spots in the ionosphere. And let's go to the anomalygram. Here is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. And since space weather is calm, this isn't too out of control. Keep in mind, it's been pretty active over the past 30 days. So, since this is the 30-day average, if you have a really active month, when things do simmer down, you may see anomalies here that are just because it's the anomalygram. Hopefully that makes sense. And we're about to transition into Earth weather. So let's take a look at the Atlantic sunrise here, as it is Earth weather time. And we're located in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Let us know in the comments where you're located. Gemini Vivo asks, is this accurate? We only do accurate stuff on the channel. Anyway, there's the Atlantic sunrise. Let's take a look at the water vapor map for the U.S. But first, Universum Liberate. You're invited to join the Galactic Federation Special Forces or to support us. I mean it. Because, well, maybe it's too reckless to free everyone, but we are free speech advocates, that's for sure. And the Galactic Federation agrees. So, Universum Liberate. And if you're wondering what the symbolism it means the galaxy itself, the ability to physically strike any point in the galaxy itself, and of course, signal strength and security. That's what the key represents. The lightning bolt represents instantaneous reach. Universum Liberate, the motto of the Galactic Federation Special Forces. Here's the water vapor map I talked about. And when your radar is unclear, try the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite Suite. The water vapor map will clarify things, especially if you understand the way weather works. Humans don't control the weather, folks. I'll just leave it there. Humans don't control the weather. It's peak arrogance and ignorance to think humans control the weather. It's really a ridiculous claim that we hear regularly on Twitter. Twitter, the misinformation capital of the social media sphere. There's our Doppler radar map. We still do have a little bit of lake effect snow here in Pennsylvania, but as far as precipitation, things are mostly dry here. The Southwest is having some showers. Southern Utah and northern Arizona. Well, you see the map. There it is. Today's forecast for Lehigh Valley is a high near 33. A slight chance of snow showers late tonight into early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, a high of 41, as the really cold part of winter is over. So for all our Lehigh Valley viewers, Sunday, a high near 38. Wednesday, a high near 47. Tuesday, a high near 45. So those are some pretty warm temperatures there, folks. The coldest part of winter is behind us. The deep freeze has ended. And let's take a look at a pressure map real quick. There's the pressure situation for the Western world. Large anticyclone here in the northern Pacific. Strong low here in between Greenland and Newfoundland. Here's our lightning map. There is a little bit of lightning in Mexico there, but it's pretty calm as far as lightning goes. Here are the jet streams of the central world. There you go. Great jet stream map there. The 250 hectopascal winds. Surface winds of the central world looking like this. Pretty windy in the Mediterranean today. And a strong low here in between Madagascar and Africa. There's the east. The eastern world's surface winds. There are the jet streams. A big jet stream divergence here over the North Pacific. Jet streams of the west shown here, and here are your surface winds for our western viewers. If I tilt this down, that's probably a little better. We have had viewers from Alaska, and hopefully we do again. Anyway, that's about where we'll turn things down here. It's about time to close this video out. Let's show those coronal holes here in 195 angstroms. Take any additional comments, and thank our viewers once again for tuning in. So yeah, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. I'm, of course, Dan Nigro, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash. You can find our social media links in the description and in the chat in a pinned comment, which I'm typing as we speak. So yeah, there's a great view of those coronal holes there. The 195 angstroms wavelength is good at showing those. Again, a reduction in solar activity here, so the likelihood of major flares not so high. The likelihood of major coronal mass ejections not really that high. We do have some big filaments like this one down here. So yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles. And we'll do one more run here before we close out this video. We'll go back to 304 angstroms. There's that filamentary reorientation and CME that happened earlier this morning at around 9 o'clock. Right in here. Barbarian 1111 says attention spans are collapsing. Attention spans are pretty bad, folks. This is certainly linked to smartphones, which seem less and less smart as time goes on. So, yeah, fingers crossed for the AI-induced utopia. We're hoping for a bug-free smartphone app first. And we're hoping that people have better attention spans. So, until next time, may that solar wind be at your back and that nonsense absent from your YouTube subscription feed.